want to tell you a little bit about my narrative of how I got to be up here talking to you about wearable technology. And more importantly, I want to tell you about ideas having sex. And I think this is the birth of creativity. It just so happens that a few of my products are a little bit sexy, so I'm also going to show you lots of pictures of naked people. It helps keep your attention in check. So the first ever product that I worked on at the beginning of wearable experiments was a product called Funderwear. And Funderwear is vibrating knickers for couples in long-distance relationships. Yes, it is remote controlled via your smartphone. You can control him, he can control you from wherever you want to be touched. What we figured out in building this product was that it was successful, yes, because sex sells, but secondly, because it didn't look like a piece of technology. And we started deep diving into this area of wearables, and we decided that if porn was the beginning of the internet, then Funderwear was the beginning of wearables. So following this, I'm going to jump forward to 2016, where at the beginning of this year, I launched a product called Nadi X, which is a pair of yoga pants that uses haptic feedback, which is vibration, around the hips, the knees, and the ankles to help correct your form. This is the beginning of our modern luxury brand, which is all about using the skin as an interface. Now, what does that actually mean? For me, the skin as an interface means we use the skin as an instrument. We use it to communicate something back to you, and that we can personalize your data in a way that has never been done before. So, what does it do? It actually takes the information of what your body is doing, what position it's in, and then it helps correct you with vibrations around the hips, around the knees, and around the ankles. I still want these products to have invisible technology. I still want these products to feel really good. And because we launched in January this year at CES, we ended up getting a little bit of a shout-out on Jimmy Fallon, which was probably one of the funniest shout-outs I've ever had. He said, an Australian company has launched a pair of vibrating yoga pants. A husband gave them to his wife, and he's never seen her again. If only he knew about the Funderwear at the time. So following the success of this, we really wanted to start building out who this community was. And what I started to discover was that there was a bunch of other people out there, just like me, who really wanted to be touched in a yoga class. So following that, in February of 2016, we launched a fan jersey. Now, our fan jersey similarly has haptic feedback throughout the chest, and it's connected to live sports data, so that while you're watching your favorite sports team, you can feel exactly what that team is going through on your chest. Everything from the heartbeat to an adrenaline build-up to the celebration when someone scores a touchdown. To be able to do this, we have to think across multiple different projects at once. There is a hardware project, there is a software project, there is an apparel project, there is an industrial design project. And for me, being able to think horizontally has become my role in the entire company. More than that, I think you have to have a sense of humor in what you're doing. So if you'll notice, he's actually doing the nay-nay, and at one point in time, it's what happens when he's actually going into the red zone. I've had the most extraordinary amount of fun with our products, and in June this year, we actually launched at the Cannes Lion with European football, also known as soccer. And we wanted to test this out with multiple different age groups. And we tested it on children. And for me, this was a really fascinating learning. We tested it one time. We showed them exactly what the sensations were. So what it feels like when someone scores a goal, what it feels like when someone takes a penalty, what it feels like when someone gets a red card. And after that first time of showing them, they instantly knew the language. This is purely just vibration. They're not looking at a screen. This is just the sensations on their chest. So for me, what this has become is actually like writing music for the body. It is actually like a song. And when we are writing the software, we actually curate it like you're writing music in a bar. So there's an intensity, there's a frequency, and there's a placement, and there's how many haptic feedback motors are going on at once. So we are actually building this entirely new language, which all started with ideas having sex. So where does this actually get me to, and what are the really important factors that I think I want you to take home with you? I don't want you to put the technology before the human experience. You have to actually sit there and study people. You have to understand what makes us truly human. It's things like intimacy. It's things like shelter and warmth. It's things like human-to-human connection. If you design for those areas first and then use technology to enchant it, you're going to have really, really beautiful ideas. Following that, I want you to think about designing for the entire system. So that is about designing for data. And that, as a fashion designer, which is what I'm trained as, was something that I was never taught to do. No one tells you that you might make clothing with sensors in them. No one tells you that's even a possibility. And this is something you have to start designing for from the get-go. Then I want you to start thinking about designing for all 5 senses. For me, the sense that I focus on is touch. It's this translation of touch. It's what it means to have touch on your skin that isn't necessarily from a hand. But I actually study people and how they even interact with their own skin. An experiment that I did with my team only 2 weeks ago was I asked everyone to wear a white t-shirt. And I asked them to put charcoal on their forefinger and their thumbs. And I wanted to see at what part of that shirt they touched the most. And this happens to be where we place our electronics and our on and off button, because that is where the most sensible place that you touch your body. There's this discussion that is going on about designing for movement. And for me, that is more than just sustainability, but it's understanding the mobility of people, and it's understanding the mobility of industries. This industry is changing drastically. The fashion industry is changing drastically. We have to start thinking about what the future of this industry really looks like. Is it wearable technology, or is wearable technology the worst possible name in the world? For me, it should just be called ready to wear. And in that, we have to start thinking about designing for touch in a digital age. We know that human-to-human connection is really important. We know that we want to spend time with each other. So we have to figure out how do we integrate touch as part of those design tools. I believe, and as an Australian, I think it's 100% necessary, that you have to be able to take the piss out of yourselves. I don't actually know if that translates very well, but basically means you have to make fun of yourself. And inside all of our products, there are these like little twists of humor that if you know us and you know me, you'll see like littered everywhere. But I also think you have to design for discovery, and you have to design for complexity. We aren't very, very simple beings. We are extremely complex, and we need to design around those. And most importantly, this is something that I've asked people to think about often, is start designing for an experience beyond the screen. We often are dominated entirely by our smartphones. But I really think that we have to start designing for a world that is beyond what I'm calling a terminal world, a screen-dominated world. I want you to think about the future like it's much more like a Harry Potter book or a film than it is Minority Report, where your objects around you are enchanted with technology rather than everything just being dominated by a screen. Thank you very much.